So good afternoon, everyone. So today's topic is effective communication skills, and this is a very vast topic. And in the society, this communication is very much needed. If there is no communication, we cannot live or we cannot work together. Therefore, this communication is very much needed in the society or any organizations or institutions. Now here, what is communication? First, you must know the definition of communication. Communication is the process of conveying messages from one person to another so that they are understood. This communication is derived from Latin word communis, which means common. When we communicate, then this communication shares the commonness with someone in common. Therefore, this communication is the process of conveying messages from one person to another. And in Oxford English Dictionary, communication is defined as imparting, conveying, or transmitting the messages to another person by speech or writing or signs. So this communication takes place between two persons. One has to be communicator, another has to be community. And communication is made between these two persons. One is communicator, another one is community. And whenever we see in the classes, when teacher teaches to the students, he or she uses the communication, and that communication delivers some teachings to the students. He communicates to the students through speech or writing or some signs. And suppose any teacher is delivering his speech or lecture to the students, and if lecture is understood by the students, then there is good communication. And suppose students were taught by a teacher, if they don't follow, they don't understand what is taught to the students, then there is no communication. If they are not understood, then there is something wrong in communication. Therefore, this language or any signs or any verbal speech should be understandable to the students. If they are not following in the class what is taught, maybe teacher might be using the complicated terms or difficult language, and if the students are not able to grasp, if they are not able to understand, then there is no good communication. Therefore, that communication has to be done in simple way, in simple language. And this communication is divided into three parts. One is on the basis of relation, second is on the basis of flow of direction. Third is on the basis of media or expression. There is mistake and all, but it is on the basis of flow of direction. So now we will see one by one. And the basis of relation communication is divided into two. One is formal communication, the second one is informal communication. This formal communication follows the channels of organization structure. Like in any organization, there is an executive manager, then manager, then there are also some workmen or workers. So they are divided like we can say like as executive managers, then managers, then workers. So this communication has to be made from the executive manager to manager. The manager has to communicate to supervisor, and supervisor has to communicate to the workers. So that communication is made from top to bottom. And in informal communication, this informal communication is made between the members of any organization or institution. Suppose there is the executive manager or subordinate or workers. So there is this system is not followed as informal communication. It is followed, but in informal communication that is not followed. So directly they can worker also can talk to communicate to executive manager or supervisors. So they can approach anyone and they can communicate if they have any ideas or suggestions or any instruction. So they can communicate to each other. They don't follow formal communication. And second, on the basis of law of direction, like there are divided into four, like downward, upward, horizontal, and diagonal. Like in any organization, just I told you, like chief executive manager, then supervisor, then workers, and this communication is made. Suppose it's like downward, executive manager will communicate to the manager, and manager will communicate to supervisor, then supervisor will communicate to the workers. So it will be done from top to bottom. And in upward communication, it is done from just there's mistake done. Downward is from down to top, and upward communication is from top to down. Like same thing, they can like in upward, just like chief manager, then manager, then supervisor, then workers. So this communication is made from from top to bottom, and downward communication from bottom to top. And horizontal communication is made like there are like teachers. Some are teaching maths, some are teaching history, some are teaching chemistry or physics. So they can communicate to other teachers. Like this teacher, like maths teacher can communicate to any chemistry teacher can communicate to physics teacher can communicate to any SST teacher. So whatever they had in their minds, whenever they communicate their ideas or thoughts, then they can communicate to other teachers, like horizontal. And in this diagonal communication, so in diagonal communication, suppose we have principal, vice principal, teachers, then colleagues, then workers. So here, like principal can also directly communicate to workers, also can communicate to a color, and also color can communicate to principal, or color can communicate to uh, any teacher, or communicate to any worker. So, for example, this diagonal communication may state, but in horizontal level, horizontal communication is like I already told you that any teacher can, any math teacher can communicate to any chemistry teacher. So like that it will go on. And on the basis of media or expression, it has three parts like oral, gestural, and written. Like in communicator communicates to other person. So by speech, he can communicate to the person. For example, we can say like we are having this in our training program. So I am communicating to you about the communication. So like here classification of communication. So like conveying about the communication to you. And in gestural, this gestural communication is meant by signs. Like you might have seen that traffic police, they stand in the middle of the road and just they stop when they come from any side. Suppose he wants to stop, just he shows hands, they will stop. And suppose he like he does like that with sign of waving hands, so they come. So through this gesture also can be communicated. Like nowadays many media people also there, those who are not able to hear. So they just convey the message to the people through signs, through showing the gestures, like by wink of eye or by the wave of hands. That message can be communicated to other person. And written communication. Written communication, like many authors have written books, and authors are communicating to the students or other people by writing. This communication, written communication, is done by writing. Like any message is sent to the teachers or students, and message is written, then that is conveyed to the students or parents or teachers. So that is written communication. Even in the school or in the organization, they just circulate letters. And through letters, this communication is made to the students or the workers who are working in the organization. So that is written communication. Here, all elements of communication. Here, elements of communication is just I already said. One is communicator, second is communicative, and message. Communicator, one who communicates some message to other person. And community is the person who receives the information or suggestions from other person. So message conveyed to communicative by communicator. So any message or information or suggestions which is transmitted to community by communicator. Any message, like message, but message should be any fact. And suppose you are conveying any message to the students, and there should be any one message or two messages. But at a time, at least one message should be conveyed to the students or teachers or whosoever may be. And suppose message is wrong, then they will not accept, receiver will not accept, or community will not accept the message. So, in this communication, these three are very important elements of communication. Communicator, second is communicative, and message. And communicator is also said person who communicates. So communicative already I told you receiver. And this is the process of communication. Like here, sender is the person who communicates any message to the receiver. So start sender, encoding message, then decoding receiver. From this side, this encoding message is transmitted by sender and it is transmitted to receiver. So this is the process of communication. Already said communication is the process of exchange of any ideas, thoughts, transfer of information or suggestion to the other person. Now here is given the definition. What is effective communication? Effective communication is a process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, knowledge, and information such that the purpose or intention is fulfilled in the best possible manner. In simple words, it is nothing but the presentation of views by sender in a way best understood by the receiver. So it is only very simple that person who communicates any thoughts or any information, suggestion, ideas to the another person, that is receiver. There are 7 communication principles of effective communication skills. This is very important. It's very important. Suppose you communicate any message to any person or students or workers. So whatever messages or information you communicate, there should be clarity. If there is no clarity in message transmitted to the students or workers or whosoever may be, if there is no clear message, then that message will be not received by the other person. So it has to be clear enough. And this clarity, like be clear about the goal and the purpose of your message. So I already said that message what you convey to other person or transmit message to another person has to be very clear. And these are the important points to be remembered whenever we communicate any facts to the other persons. To achieve clarity, keep in mind that following points: use common and simple language. Suppose we are not communicating in simple language. If we are using Latin language and if they don't know, then they will not understand the message you convey to the students or workers or other persons. So, and also suppose you are teaching students and you are using the high language which is not understood by students. So it has to be very simple language. So language should be very simple. If you speak the high English, then students whom you teach will not understand. Therefore, it has to be very simple language. Second is construct effective sentences and short paragraph. So whenever you teach or communicate any chapter, any topics to the students, so you have to construct the simple sentences. And also, whenever you give them any answers, then that answer has to be short If it is long answer, that we have to make it short, and then students will understand better. Then use concrete word instead of abstract word. And also students always like if you speak the concrete words and suppose abstract words, if you use, then it will be difficult for them to understand it. Therefore, always like abstract words. So, whenever we convey a message to students or any workers, that language should be concrete one, words should be concrete, those terms you use, that has to be concrete. Don't use too much abstract words. It will be difficult for the students or workers to understand. Therefore, we have to use the concrete words. Avoid unnecessary information. Suppose you are teaching maths and you are talking about something, chemistry, physics, or history or civics. So, what information we have to convey to the students, that has to be taught to the students. Suppose you are taking any subject like English, you are teaching English, but also you are talking about computer or teaching about history, so that is wasting of time. So you have to focus the particular chapter, and suppose you are teaching any chapter, and that concept of that chapter has to be communicated to the students. So only whenever we communicate any message to any person, so we have to focus on that topic, and we have to convey that fact to the students. Second is correctness. Make sure your message is accurate and grammatically correct. So, whenever we convey any message to anyone, that has to be correct. Correct message has to be communicated to the students or any other persons. And there is, if any grammar mistake is there, then students will laugh if there is grammar mistake. Suppose you are talking about the past tense and you are teaching present, so they will laugh at you. If you don't teach the correct grammar in a whatever chapter maybe, if you are teaching present tense, but again you are using the past tense, so the students whom you are teaching, they will not follow and they will lose the interest in learning. Therefore, whenever we teach, that message or that chapter has to be taught in good grammar. To achieve correctness, follow the guidelines. These are some points to be followed, like check the accuracy of facts and figures. Second is check mistakes in punctuation, grammar in capitalization. Check misspelled words. Use the right level of language. I think only it has been explained to you. Then another type is conciseness. Keep the point and keep your message short and simple. It has to be very brief. Don't prolong it. That any message has to be very concise, not long. To achieve conciseness, follow the guidelines. These are 3 points we have to keep in our minds. Remove the wordy spaces. Second is include only relevant material. Avoid unnecessary repetition. So whenever you face anything or whenever you communicate any message, suppose there is repetition, they lose interest in learning. Courtesy, courtesy. Your message should be polite, friendly, professional, and open. So whenever we communicate a message to any person, it should be polite. If you use the hard language, or suppose you are teaching the students any chapter of any subject, so sometimes we have to use the polite language. Suppose you just scold them or frighten them or create fear in them, sometimes they lose interest. So always we have to use the polite language, polite words. These are the certain points to be remembered. In this point, to achieve courtesy, keep in mind that following points. Be sincere. Second is use expressions that show respect. Be thoughtful and appreciative of the receiver point. Avoid humor. Avoid discrimination. Discriminatory language that is race, color, gender, faith, etc. So, concreteness, be clear, not elusive. Provide detail, but not too much to confuse. So, already we have seen this one. To achieve concreteness, follow the guidelines. 3 points are there. Use clear and image building words. Use specific sites and figures. Use active voice than passive voice. Here in concreteness, we have to use mostly active voice more than passive voice. So I think you know what is active voice and passive voice. So mostly whenever we communicate any message to any students, so we have to use active voice rather than passive voice. Consideration, to think and view from others' angle. To achieve consideration, follow the guidelines. These are the some points to follow. See your material from your reader's point of view. There is you, but yours should be there. Focus on you instead of we and I. Be sure about the benefits of the receiver. Consider the needs and problem of the receiver. Use positive and positivity. So whenever you communicate any message to any person, should be positive message and also optimistic. The last point is completeness. Ensure that recipient has everything they need to understand. So whenever we convey any message to anyone, there should be complete message. So if there is no complete message, then the receiver will lose interest in listening to. Therefore, whenever we speak to anyone, so we have to speak in complete sentence or whatever message to be communicated, that has to be complete. Otherwise, they will not listen or they will not understand what information is conveyed to them. So, to achieve completeness for guidelines, these are the some points which we have to keep in mind. Remember the 5 W. That is what, when, where, why, who, and how. So, whenever we communicate any message, so we keep in mind that these words are very important. And suppose what, like what's your name, when are you coming to Kishanganj, where are you going, why are you going to Patna, who is that person, and how are you. So suppose you use these 5 words in communication, then they will understand better. Whenever you communicate anyone, so suppose you communicate every detail, then they will listen to you nicely and they will understand what you say or speak to them. Then provide all the necessary information. You have to provide the all information. Suppose any organization, if any manager is there and wants to communicate something about the books, so he has to tell everything when they have to come to the factory and how long they have to be there and when will be break. So every information he has to provide them, then what will be done in smooth way. And answer all the questions asked. Suppose they ask any questions, so manager has to give all the answers to the workers. Then include additional information if desired. So if there is any information, additional information, that has to be also conveyed to them. So significance of effective communication in workplace. Like there are so many significances of their organizational growth. Like in the organization, I already told you there is chief manager, then supervisors, then workers are there. So if there is proper communication among them, then that organization will grow smoothly and facilitates creativity and innovation. And also there is a good communication there among those superiors and subordinates, whosoever may be, then facilitates all the creativity or the works done in the organization or schools or any institution, all will be done in a smooth way and build strong relationship. So this is a very important point that all those who work in institution or any organization, they have to build up a strong relationship with everyone. If relationship is broken, then they will not work properly. Whatever responsibilities they have been entrusted, if they think that that is not my work, another person will say that's not my work, then things will not go smoothly. If there is good relationship among the staff, then all will collaborate, all will help one another, then things will go on smoothly. That's why if there is good communication among all the staff, all the workers, then there is all the works will be done in a smooth way. And a certain transparency and develop trust. In whenever we are communication, there should be transparency and trust. If person who is communicating to other person, if he or she has no trust, no transparency, then communication will be failure. So person who communicates anyone, so there should be trustworthy or they should trust one another. There should be transparency among them. Then all the messages or information or suggestions will be communicated or conveyed properly. And employee management also, if there is good communication, then all will work together, all will help one another, all will collaborate with one another. So if there is management is good, then things will also go on smoothly. Then team building. So now we have so many people working in this institution, and if they had team spirit in the institution, then everything will be done smoothly. Suppose there is no team spirit among the staff, if they don't collaborate, don't help one another, then there will be big problem. So at least there should be team spirit or team building among the staff. Reduces misunderstanding. This communication reduces misunderstanding among the staff or workers. So always, whenever there is any problem, suppose we communicate to all the persons, all the workers, all the staff, all the teachers, then that misunderstanding will disappear. Otherwise, it will exist. Suppose anyone has any problem, unless until problem is shared with others, then that misunderstanding will exist. And once that problem is communicated to other person, and if they listen to whom you communicate, then they can also help you to solve the problems. Otherwise, this misunderstanding will increase. And once there is misunderstanding, then there will be big problem in the communities or in any institution or any organization. Growth of organization. If there is communication among the workers, among the managers, or among the teachers, among staff, then there will be growth of organization. That's why always this meeting is conducted in any organization or any institution. Like now CBC is organizing so many training, so many meetings. And purpose of CBC is that all the teachers must follow the rules, regulations of the CBC. And therefore this meeting is being conducted. Every time also this training is being conducted. So that whatever work may be in the school, that may be done in proper way. Barrier in communication. There are so many barriers in communication. It may be linguistic barrier, it may be psychological barrier, maybe a physical barrier, it may be cultural barrier. So many barriers are there. And like here are some points are there, some barriers are there, few are highlighted. So I would just like poor listening skills. One barrier is there, poor listening skills. So there are some people who are deaf who cannot listen. So suppose you communicate any message to such persons, so they, because of poor listening, poor hearing, they will not understand the message you communicate to them or you can convey them. So this is also main barrier in communication, like noise. Suppose person, like any communicator is communicating any facts, any message to any communicative or receiver, if there is big noise, suppose loudspeaker is there, or some songs are on, and because of that noise, we cannot listen to the person who is communicating or who is conveying message that cannot be understood. So this is also one of the barriers. In inappropriate medium, like suppose students who are from Hindi medium, and suppose you talk to them or communicate to them in English, and if they don't understand, then there will be no good communication. It will be failure in communication. That's why this will be medium. Suppose you are talking Latin and they don't know, they don't understand, because they have not learned in their life. And suppose you talk to them, teach them, communicate anything to them, then they don't understand. Therefore, the medium should be, suppose they are English. So you can communicate them any information in English so they can understand. For Hindi, they know. Suppose you communicate them any types, any information or suggestion in Hindi, they can understand. So there should be appropriate medium to communicate any message, information, suggestion to any person. So there should be proper medium. Then distraction. This whenever you communicate any information to any person, sometimes this distraction takes place. And suppose you are talking to someone, communicating to someone, in between suppose somebody comes and talks to you, so you are distracted. So you cannot communicate that person properly. Suppose that means that particular place, particular person where you can communicate any message to that person. So you will not get distracted. There should not be any distraction. So this is also one of the barriers in communication. Cultural difference, this is also one of the barriers, like any language, always cultural, foreign customs or language, if they differ, suppose they are coming from foreign and they speak Italy, and if you don't know Italy, it is very difficult to communicate the information to them. Use of jargon. Use of jargon means whenever you convey any message in complicated terms, in difficult terms, it is very difficult to understand what message is communicated. Sometimes it is very difficult to understand certain words, like those are working in the port. Such terms they use, it is very difficult to understand. So those who are working in court are those who had cases, they know about those terms used. So always, whenever you communicate any message or information suggestion, so it should be simple terms. Then others can understand better what you say or what you communicate, what you impart to others. This language difference, this is also one of the barriers in communication. I already told you regarding this language difference. Suppose some foreigners come here, they don't know English, but they try to talk in English, but still somehow they can manage. And also here in India, also suppose you go to Tamil Nadu, Chennai, some of the people don't understand Hindi. Also, some the people don't understand English. So very difficult to communicate to them. So just you have to use that body language. Something that time when we had gone to Belur, that time we met certain people who were not knowing English nor Hindi. So it was very difficult to communicate with them, very difficult to talk to them. But they were talking to us through body language. So, like emotional barrier. So this is also one of the various emotions. such sometimes what happens whenever we communicate to any persons. So the lot of emotions sometimes it is also one of the emotional barrier. There is also barrier. So these are so many barriers, and also there are so many barriers in communication. But now there is no time to explain too much. We have to proceed to our topic. I think this is the last topic. Reference. Okay. See you in Noida. Then Google search book effective communication skill by Michael. Then YouTube. So also you can see in YouTube also or Google also regarding effective communication. You can get so many points. Then you can improve in effective communication to other people. So already I have explained to you. Most important is whenever we communicate any message, thoughts, ideas, information, suggestion to another person. So these are some points I had said, principles of effective communication. So there should be clarity, there should be correctness, there should be conciseness, there should be concentration, there should be completeness. Then it should be effective communication. So thank you for listening me.